Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, and welcome to Work Trends with Meghan M. Biro. Whether you're here to network, learn, or share, we want you to have fun. During this live broadcast and Twitter chat, we'll discuss the future of work with smart and entertaining guests who value today's business and its impact on the world of work for the future. Stay tuned, because we start in 3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon, everybody out there in Work Trends Community Land. Welcome to another informative Talent Culture Live podcast and Twitter chat. I'm here hanging in the Cambridge, Mass office today. I think we're going to have like 60 degrees or something crazy like that on Thursday. I'm hoping we're turning a corner here. It's been kind of a long winter. Lots of stuff doing here, I tell you. But, you know, hey, the show has to go on. We're going to go on. I want to thank all my friends and sponsors out there who make it possible to do this every single week. And we're going to continue to. Lots of exciting things are happening. Listen, today's topic is a good one, and it continues to kind of rise to the top of the conversation year after year. It's taken on new flavors, of course. Today I have the pleasure of speaking to Larry Oakner and Rebecca Longman of Tenet Partners, based out of Manhattan, the Big Apple, NYC, where they help customers build powerful brands with clear vision for the future, and where customers expect digital experiences, everybody, in air quotes. We're going to dive into that a little bit more today, that are both intuitive and rewarding. So that's a pretty tall order. I'm sure I'd love to hear from you out there if you're using the hashtag work trends. What digital experiences mean to you that are intuitive? I think that's sort of an interesting angle that we're going to unpack today. With me today, again, is Larry Oakner. He's the Senior Partner of Employee and Customer Engagement at Tenet Partners. He has spent more than 40 years, a gazillion years, by the way, everybody, building brands, positioning companies, and managing strategic branding projects. He's an accomplished educator and brand consultant. Larry has used his creative expertise to help communication pros, product managers, corporate executives at more than 36 Fortune 1500 companies, implementing brand programs internally throughout their orgs. We also have Rebecca Longman with us today. She's the Director of Engagement and Strategy at Tenet Partners, holding an MS in Occupational Psychology, as well as qualifications in accounting, computing, and creative writing. That certainly helps. She uses her eclectic background plus a wide industry experience to engage and develop employees at all levels of the organization. She has developed and implemented culture change programs for organizations in the education, industrial, and pharmaceutical industries. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I finally just took a breath.
I know, those were the longest
I
bios.
tell you. Really, you two? Could you accomplish any more if you tried?
Well, we want to keep it short. We don't want to put too much in there about all the things that we've done in our careers, but I think you've hit the high notes.
It's just how fabulous you both are. Well, listen, speaking of how fabulous you both are, I think I want to hear a little bit more from you, Larry, first, and then Rebecca, please chime in. What's it like being Larry Oakner, living in Manhattan, working, did 40 years, is that right?
Well, I think
are you feeling okay today, Larry? How's
I'm good.
Tell us just a little bit more.
I'm always feeling great. It's been an interesting career. I started I wanted to be a poet, so of course that's a very high earning career. But I soon went into advertising because, after all, advertising is the poetry of commerce. And I soon found myself. I was working on the West Coast. I moved to the East Coast and began a career in advertising as a copywriter and worked into becoming a creative director. And at one of the firms I worked at here in Manhattan, I delved into the idea of creating a brand positioning strategy, taking the big idea. The more I worked on that, the more I realized that it really was necessary for companies to understand, well, okay, this is a great statement, but what am I supposed to do? And one of the first clients that brought that up was Caterpillar. They make the earth-moving equipment, the great big yellow bulldozers. And I helped them put together a program to teach their employees, both their communicators as well as their managers, of how to bring that brand to life. And that became a special practice that I've been able to gratefully take to all different kind of clients in every kind of field.
I bet. And how long have you been in Manhattan?
I've been in Manhattan for 30 years, so it's been an interesting evolution to see the city change,
Hasn't it? It's just Manhattan has changed so much. I go back there now and I'm like, this is not the one that I knew growing up. It's just, everyone's moving to other areas, right? The Bronx, Brooklyn, right? It's expanding out for sure.
And you're seeing the differences in the industries as well, So you see these areas where the tech centers are developing in Brooklyn and Lower Manhattan and some of the Midtown stuff, which was really the heart of commerce here. It's changed a lot.
It's a lot quieter. Which, Larry, you might be grateful for at this point. I mean, 40 years into it, let's be honest. A little peace and quiet may not be such a bad thing. Just saying. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to mellow out, but, take what I know and be able to apply it.
Well, cool. Thanks for being here. And, Rebecca, tell us just a little bit more about yourself.
Well, sort of my background, actually, I started out, believe it or not, in computing and accountancy. That was about 12 years ago now. And I actually, while I was sort of doing my first degree, I got ill. I had chronic fatigue syndrome for 3 years, and I kind of had to quit life, really. It was a pretty challenging time, but it kind of made me rethink how I wanted to develop my career. And so I decided I was working at the time, but I decided once I got well that I was also going to study, and I was going to study psychology because I wanted to understand more about people, what made them tick, why they did what they did. And I decided to then incorporate that into my career. So I kind of started out it's occupational psychology. I sort of started out in the HR world and applying that psychology knowledge to that area. And then as time went on, I kind of thought, you know what, HR sort of sits on its own here, and that doesn't quite feel right. Organizations are bigger than that. So then as time developed, I thought, well, how can I kind of progress this? And then over the last couple of years, I started looking more into the marketing and branding side of things and saying, well, they're kind of looking at customers and we're looking at employees. I feel like the two should meet somewhere. And so I kind of met Larry, and he was like, you know what, this is what I do, and you kind of have this HR background, and I have this branding background, and shall we kind of have a little marriage here and see if we can, progress things? So that's where I am now. So it's kind of been a colorful career, really.
I bet. Where did you and Larry meet?
We met in our conference room. I was looking for somebody that I could work with. I had a person here who left, and it's really it takes a couple of people on a team to be able to work with clients. So you have to understand where they're coming from. The HR side is so critical, and talked to a lot of people. And when I interviewed with Rebecca, I thought, wow, this is really going to complete where we want to be able to go, because it's one thing. With employee engagement, it always ends up a little bit being like the when you go to McDonald's and people say, oh, and do you want fries with that? It was always the tail on the dog, And I said, this is a better way to knock on that door of a company for new business, to go in through the HR door, because they may not have understood the importance of branding when it comes to HR, because it's a really important growing factor.
Sometimes people believe that technology is the solution to all their problems, right? I know I talk to clients every day who, there's some cool new application that they're developing, a piece of software, but we do know that technology is only as good as the person using it, right? And that's where we get into adoption. Tell us from your perspective how HR and leadership can leverage technology in supporting actually supporting in a real, genuine way the employee review process? I'd like to hear just a little bit more about that.
I think that's the key, actually, the word supporting, because I think what we've kind of fallen into in the HR world is that HR technology is going to solve everything, and it really doesn't. It's a tool, It's something that supports the conversations that should be happening between employees and managers. So it's about developing an employee review process that uses technology as part of that, but that also has other pieces to it. So if you think about this whole thing that we've had about annual reviews now, this whole annual review process is kind of being shaken up, in the industry, and people are seeing things differently. And what we're saying is, let's think about this whole process, and let's think about what are all the different pieces that feed into that. And we think that peer review is a big part of that, and that technology can be a big part of that peer review process. And the way that we look at that is, if you think about the different employees that you have in an organization, we often think about employees just sitting behind a desk, and that's not how the world of work works. Certainly not with a lot of the clients that we have. There's people on the factory floor, there's warehouses, remote locations, driving trucks, all these different things. And so using a tool like a web app or something along those lines that everyone can access so that everyone can give feedback to everybody else, it helps to build those conversations and to create a more colorful picture of how people are doing and how we can support them to continue to grow.
Interesting. Well, and so many companies are understanding the fact that annual reviews are really becoming kind of pointless, right?
Right.
I mean, if you have no context and you're not developing engagement on a more regular basis, it just kind of feels fake to, I think, a lot of companies and practitioners out there. It's like, why are we doing this in this highly formalized way when we have so many other areas that we can connect on, right, on a more regular, more seemingly genuine way?
And not only,
kind of blows my mind that,
Yeah, not only that, Megan, but as a manager myself, with having a staff to do an annual review, sometimes I have to think, now, what did they do this year that I really liked? Oh, and then there was that one thing that was just last week.
Right.
So in talking to our clients, when we say, as Rebecca was just saying, the more frequently you can get involved with employee review, one, it's more current and fresh, and two, we know that acknowledging the things that you want an employee to do and helping them understand the things that are not appropriate, it works closer to the moment when they're doing that.
It seems more real, right, somehow. It seems more genuine.
That's right.
Somehow.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, but we also think...
Yeah.
We also think the annual review piece, that's not necessarily something that should go away. It should be there, but it should be informed by all of this other stuff that's happening. All of these constant conversations then kind of mount up, so that the whole point is that when you have that conversation at the end of the year, or if you have that conversation more frequently, that it's not a surprise. It should never be. You walk into that and you think, oh, I've been doing that and that's been a problem. That should never happen. It should be this constant conversation that's happening, and in a formal and informal way.
Well, luckily, I think more brands are becoming aware of that, which is awesome.
Right.
I think a lot of companies, when we talk about brand, I think there's a lot of people and companies out there that still struggle with understanding their value prop. And when that happens, we know, right, if I'm really looking at it from a retention and an attraction of new talent, that kind of suffers. There's this whole fuzziness that happens there, right, that I think people now more than ever are kind of, you can feel it. There's some kind of there's a sense in your gut that something's off, right? How can companies learn to understand what their brand value is and then capitalize on that with, either talent acquisition or retention, just as importantly?
This is a great question, Megan. I think the way to look at it is, first of all, companies need to define very clearly what their brand value and brand values with an S are all about. Because branding is really about differentiation. How does one company differ from another in the mind of consumers and in the mind of potential employees? So what they stand for needs to be clearly stated. That's your brand value proposition. But your brand values, with an S, is really about understanding how should an employee behave in a way that demonstrates in the course of their daily work what they're doing and how does it differ from somebody else. It's easy to see in service industries. It's much more difficult to see in manufacturing or things a lot of customer facing. But when it comes to finding people to work in those organizations, it's critical that the brand values are made clear from the recruitment ad. You look at so many ads that are out there on Monster or on Career Builder, and they all sound the same. There's no differentiation from one to another. So one of the things that we counsel our employees to do is, if you're going to have a recruitment ad, make it sound like the voice of that company right from the start. Not only will it differentiate your ad from somebody else's, but what it will do is it'll attract the kind of people that you want to work at your organization, because they'll say, oh, I'm like that. I like the way they're talking. I want to work there. So that helps with talent acquisition. When it comes to retention, it also helps people understand, what am I getting into? A lot of times, if you don't have an accurate description of what your company is all about, it's about, on the average, 6 months when people bail out. They said, oh, this isn't what I signed up for. So making sure that it's alignment with your values from the get-go is a way to not only find the right people, to make sure that they're going to be willing to stay.
I'm curious, Larry and Rebecca, how many of your clients are using digital strategy, video, tools like that to connect with their audience now, as opposed to, say, last year or the year before? What's that looking like right now for your clients?
I'd say there's more of an appetite for it. In theory, when it comes to that in practice, there's quite an adjustment that's needed from those clients to really start to apply that in a way that fits with their current model. So there's kind of an education piece that has to happen there on how they can do that. And when you start talking about that and thinking about how to integrate that into the whole of the organization, you sometimes get some pushback. So there's a realization there.
Rebecca,
but,
Rebecca, you're so polite. You're so polite.
Right.
I love that about you. I love it.
Pushback.
No, I know. I'm not surprised to hear this. That's why I'm asking you all that question, because I think the collective, we like to talk about it a lot, but when you when the rubber hits the road, how many brands are actually implementing programs that are digital in a multi-pronged way? I think we got a long way to go still. That's the interesting thing, which is great. There's more opportunity.
It's true. But oftentimes you'll see it in kind of pockets. So Rebecca and I saw a demonstration, I won't mention the name of it, of a very large software company who had put together a program, as a package, for the HR world. And we sat through a 3.5-hour demonstration by the rep. And when it was done, we looked at each other and said, okay, this may be for HR, but where's the humanity? It was all numbers. It was all based on putting numbers. And how could an HR person just use that? Well, it was designed for huge organizations that had many, many people, but we just felt that it lacked humanity.
Well, that's a real problem for brands. Getting human is going to be a key piece to any strategy moving forward.
Right.
And it's not always easy, but people are demanding that now, really. It's not even like, oh, it's a nice to have, and that's why I still think we have a long way to go until, you see mass amounts of clients, brands, companies using tools in a way that are genuinely telling their story, right?
Absolutely.
So, listen, I've been reading some of your articles, right? I read that 33% of Americans form their opinion of an organization based on their interactions with the company's employees. this speaks fathoms to me, right? And it certainly supports how the employer brand and consumer brand intersect, right? And that sweet spot has overlap, right? That aligns two brands. So given this, why do so many companies ignore the importance of training and re-educating programs with employees, right? Even knowing that their employees' consumer interactions will affect sales.
Well, I think it's
why is that still happening?
I think it's partly what we've just been talking about. It's this pushback thing. Sadly, there are many companies out there that still believe that the engagement piece is kind of a nice to have. It's like a softer side, and people tend to adopt that way of thinking once problems start to occur. They don't often sort of think of it up front. We need to do this to prevent those issues. I mean, you've only got to look at the stats of mergers and acquisitions, and 80% of them fail, so the stats say, and that's due often to the cultural clashes that you get between the two organizations and the lack of prep that's done to encourage those two sets of people to come together. So people don't often translate those kind of customer-employee interactions directly to the dollar outcomes. And people assume that employees will kind of continue to act in the way that they expect them to act, even when there's sort of times of change happening. And what we know is that people aren't
even
like
though
that.
Aren't they people? Aren't
exactly,
aren't we
right?
kind of
People
unpredictable?
are kind of all a bit crazy. It's life.
Yeah.
And it even gets it more expanded than that, Megan, in the sense that we had a client ask us, would it be possible to look at what percentage of their brand value, their stock price, was impacted by their employee engagement. So we sat down with we have a pretty robust analytics department, and we said, if we could get the right numbers, if we could get the right information, could we do this? And they said yes. So we created this methodology called EIQ, which stands for Employee Impact Quotient. And what it does is it draws this actual financial connection between their level of employee engagement and a publicly traded company's stock price. It's amazing to see the connection. And more companies need to understand that. There's such an impact on employees on their financials.
And that's how we get companies to actually do anything about it. So that's why you hear me laughing and chuckling over here, because it's like if it doesn't add up in dollars and cents, it seems like nothing happens.
That's
right?
true. That's true. You have to show the consequences.
Is that, do you think, Larry, in your opinion, for big brands only, or do you think that could be for the 50-person brand? 50 employees, growing, rapidly growing. I mean, who do you think that relates to specifically?
I think that the way we had envisioned it, it really needs to be, because of the data, to look at the impact to a stock price on a publicly traded company. But certainly organizations that are 50 persons, mid-cap, small-cap size, there's a huge financial impact on how they interact with their employees. I mean, I think it's a well-worn number, but it's probably true that about 1.5 times a person's salary is what it takes to hire a new person if somebody leaves. So a company that has a lot of attrition, they're going to be losing money because they haven't made a better contact with their employees, understand what their needs are, made it clear what the brand stands for, and they're going to suffer from it financially. So it can't be, in one door, out the other. It's got to be looked at as, how do I hire the right person? How do I make them feel valuable to the organization? And keep them productive.
So we're talking about the same article right now for a moment because I thought it was really interesting. There was another point that jumped out at me, making sure customer satisfaction surveys actually align with employee performance reports. So tell us more about that and how companies can merge the two to gain these insights that will hopefully lead somewhere like to a place called employee engagement.
Right. Well, many companies have customer satisfaction input channels. It might be those surveys that you get 10 minutes after you've gotten off your airplane, or after you've stayed at a hotel or taken your car in for service or gotten a phone call. A lot of that data is being captured about customer satisfaction. On the other hand, employees are often evaluated on their behavior, on how things are going for them, be it in an annual review or a periodic one. So let's take, for example, the case of a hotel. In a hotel, you have a terrible experience. It's awful. The room is bad. The receptionist was rude. What are you going to do? Well, more likely, since you had a bad experience, you're going to tweet about it. You're going to write about it. You're going to post it on TripAdvisor. But if you have a great experience, you're also going to post a great experience. It was wonderful. It was exquisite. But what about all those people in the middle who just said, yep, it met my expectations and job well done? That's where you're going to see the biggest number of people. So what organizations need to do is to validate what they're hearing from customers and from the perceptions of employees and make sure those two things align. Because if an employee says, everything's going great, I'm doing well, and you're getting all these complaints about reception or service or whatever it might be, then you know that's an area to take a look.
So interesting. And you're right. I love this whole point about this whole population of people in between who aren't doing either.
That's right.
I'd love to see those numbers. I bet you they're a lot larger than we all think. So very interesting.
I think so.
All right, so we're down to like 4 more minutes, guys and gals. So I kind of want to cut to the chase right now because we only have 4 minutes left, and we'll certainly, continue this conversation on Twitter. But what factors make a company a talent magnet today? Like what is it that companies are doing in each of you? I'd love to hear each of you weigh in on that.
Okay. Well, I'm going to let Rebecca start because I think that it's closer to her generation here.
Well, so if you think about millennials, they look for certain things. You've got to think about things like being able to develop in an organization. That's a big part. Having flexibility to work from home, work from different locations. All of those things are kind of talked about a lot. So that's kind of one way of looking at it. But then when you think about the fact that, we're not just one generation of people, there's lots of different generations within the workplace. And everyone's looking for different things. And then you've also got to think that things differ by industry as well. So it really can kind of go in lots of different directions.
So you're also sort of thinking about, when you hear about, because of social media and the ability to really spread the word about an organization quickly, that helps people say, well, who's hot, what's hot, where do I want to work? But you know what? Word of mouth referrals are still critical. The first thing that people do is they want to find out, what's it like to work there? Gee, do you know anyone who works there? Tell me what the culture is about. That's what people want to know is what's my life going to be like there?
But I think one of the most important things to think about is being true to who you say you are as an organization. And this is where the branding piece really comes in. You're saying that you're one thing, and it's about living that every day. And if you promote that, you'll get the right talent to your organization that fits with your brand.
Totally agree. And so many brands miss the mark still. Just be yourself. It's super interesting. People might think some really weird, quirky thing is actually really cool. Seriously,
Yeah.
So often we hide behind super slick ads or videos, and they're not humanized at all. And I think a lot of brands are missing the boat still.
And that's when you're going to get the wrong. The people that don't fit with trying to go. Where your strategy is taking.
No doubt about it. Well, listen, I want to thank you both for being here. We're getting down to the final minute, so if you want to tell us what's shaken over there at Tenet Partners in 2017, let us know, and then we're going to hop on over to Twitter for an extended conversation.
Great. Well, we'll be glad to, and thanks for the conversation so much. On Tuesday, on March 28th, we'll be hosting a webinar about brand culture and the intersection with HR. And what we'll do is we'll be sharing our insights from this survey that we just conducted, a brand culture survey. There'll be very revealing things in there, and the implications are quite far-reaching. People can register for it on the Talent Culture website, or they can go to Tenet Partners. That's Tenet, Tenet Partners. Go to the news section on our page, and you'll see an article, and you can sign up.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's
It's been
continue
great.
this conversation. I look forward to seeing all that juicy data. Talk to you
Okay,
soon.
take care.
Thanks,
Right.
Megan.
Bye-bye.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.